Do you want to automate lead generation based on who visits your website? I'm going to show you which freemium tools I use to do exactly that. I have a process set up that automatically adds users to my CRM and email sequences when they visit my website. Let's automate this. The tools we're going to use to do this are RB2B, Slack, Google Sheets, Airtable, HubSpot, Apollo, and Clay. Now, depending on your CRM or your automation needs, you might use different tools. Some of these are going to be optional, but those are the ones I'm going to go through. And depending on whether you have a trial set up or how many credits you have, you can do all this for free. And I'm going to show you step by step how I get it done. So here is my make.com scenario. And again, I'm going to show you each step in detail, but what happens is I get messages in Slack from an RB2B automation. RB2B sends a message to Slack with info about who visited my website, their LinkedIn profile, and other things. That gets added to a raw data cell in Google Sheets. I then have formulas in a separate tab that automatically pulls in things like name, LinkedIn profile, location, page they visited, etc. I separate them into different cells, and then I use this router to send the information to Airtable as a CRM, HubSpot CRM, Apollo for email sequences for leads, and Clay to extract those emails. You can play with this scenario and make some tweaks, but I'm going to show you how I set this up so I can get all this information automated. As soon as someone visits my website, I never have to come in here and do anything. The first thing we're going to do is go to RB2B. This is a software that, again, identifies who has come to my website, and at a company level or a person level, depending on the information, for free, I can get up to 150 users per month sent to my Slack channel that I've set up, and I can tell who's been to my website. They're going to send me a Slack message, and they're going to tell me the name, their LinkedIn link, their location, and the first page they visited when they were identified. And again, there are options to upgrade, but for me, this is enough what I need to do. So let's go back to make. What you would do is, I'm going to do this in parallel to what we already have. You would add a module, and then you would search for Slack. Since it's already in the scenario, it's going to be right up top. And I'm going to do watch private channel messages. And I'm going to select it from the list. There's only one private channel available, RB2B. How many results do I want each time? Well, just one. And one tricky thing about Slack is there's a rate limit. So if your website gets a ton of traffic and it's identifying a lot of different visitors, it would probably be worth paying just for the RB2B information to get the email, because otherwise you're going to run into rate limits and you're going to miss a lot of your visitors because it's just going to fail to run this process. But for now, let's hit save. Just going to look for messages in private RB2B channel. And then I could select when to start. I'm going to say from now on. And what you would do from there is add another module, and we're going to update a row in Google Sheets. Now, I already have a Google Sheet that's created, and I'm going to show it to you, but we're going to select update a row. If you haven't already, you'll have to connect an account. So this is my G Drive account that allows me to access my files. And I'm going to select the file by the spreadsheet ID. It's under AI Automations, and then RB2B Slack messages. And now I'm going to select the sheet name. It's going to be raw data and the row number. And what I want to go into the raw message header is the text. And I'm going to show you how this will play out in a moment. So let's look at the spreadsheet. I have blacked out here the information, but what you would see is in this raw message is what was originally sent to the Slack channel. All this information is sent just in text, but it's very difficult to read because for any program to extract a web page they visited or the LinkedIn profile from a bunch of text in a random string is going to be difficult because the characters are going to be in a different place every time. So I have a second tab, and in each of these cells, let's just copy down the formula so you can see them without having to show you the private data. In each of these cells, I'm extracting from the raw data tab. It's actually cell A2 since it would be row 2. So they're all going to reference, as you see, we go over to the different cells here. They're all referencing column A, okay? They all say, even though we're in A4 here, they would say A2. So they're all referencing the same cell here. And I got this formula by asking ChatGPT. I copied and pasted the last name from the raw information here in raw data, and I pasted the raw message. And I said, this is what the message is going to look like every time. These are the parts that stay the same. This is what could change. What formula could you give me? So if you need any of these formulas, just let me know. I'll send them over. I can share the spreadsheet with you. But what we have here is a formula that's going to pull in and extract it for the location. It shows me the page they visited. That's not confidential, so I can show you here since it's being cut off. But we can see they were looking for information on how to track ChatGPT or LM traffic in GA4. That's a blog post. So that's an interesting nugget. And then is repeat, basically, if someone comes more than once to my website, RB2B will recognize that. And so there's something in the text that I also extract for it to say, okay, if it says repeat visitor signal, then write true, otherwise write false. And so that is what we have here, and that comes into play later with one of my filters. But let me delete these because they're not actually going to be used at any time. We only need these first two rows. And the reason is every time this process cycles through in Make, it's going to add the data to these sources here. So I don't need to store the information in Google Sheets. So it's fine if it just updates and basically overwrites the same row every time. So since it's simultaneous, it's going to update the row here. The formulas will automatically update. And so then I can use something called get range values. And so you would go to Sheets, you would say get range values, and you would fill out the different steps here. And what we have here is I'm going to say in range A2 to I2. So let's go back to Google Sheets and see why we're doing that. You can see I'm storing information in A2 to I2. The headers don't matter. So we just want A2 to I2. We're going to say there are headers, but since we're not using information, we can just say no, we're only pulling from one particular row. Okay, and we save that. And then all that information in those cells is available to send to different places. Now, if you use make.com, you're familiar with routers. If not, this allows us to simultaneously update from top to bottom. You can see it says first, second, third, fourth. Starting with the information that's here, it will update each of these. So instead of having it in a horizontal line and having to connect these, and they might not work as efficiently, we can do it all using one router because they're all going to be using the same information from get range value. So what you would do here is you would hit a plus, and then you could type router, and then it's already going to give you two options. And so from here, then you could type Airtable, and in this case, we're going to do create a record, and then you could type in the second one HubSpot, and we're going to do create a new contact. So let me clean this up by deleting these modules that I showed you for our example. Okay, so now that we have the information in Google Sheets, now the fun begins. Between the modules, you can set up filters, and I have on two of these. The reason is I use both of these for CRMs, Airtable and HubSpot. Part of the reason is I want to be familiar with multiple tools, and there are different capabilities in Airtable that HubSpot doesn't have and vice versa. So I like to stay up to date on both of them. And I'm using a filter here that basically says, if it's a repeat visitor, so we're pulling from column I, and if we go back to Excel, we see column I is repeat. So if it's false, it's not going to trigger this particular step. But if it's true, then it will add them to Airtable. It will add them to my CRM. So I still want to know who they are, and I'm going to capture that information in Apollo and Clay. But as far as adding them to my CRM, I'm not going to consider someone a lead or a prospect just because they view a blog post that they might have found on Google or ChatGPT or wherever. That doesn't necessarily make them a qualified lead. So I don't want to load up my CRM. I have a filter there, but then in Apollo, I'm creating a contact, and in Clay, I'm updating a table, which I'll show you. So the first thing, create a record. The information I'm pulling in from here is for contact. Now you can't see it. I'm going to black it out in the video, but in the first one here, I have the full name. In the second cell under column B, I have first name and then last name, etc. It goes all the way down. I click, and after the scenario has run once, it's going to show me from the previous modules that we've done the information available. And I know that I want the title. So this is going to be dynamic. This is the beauty of make.com and automation tools like this. Instead of having to manually look it up, every time it's going to know, okay, the job title is going to be in this cell, so it's going to pull it in automatically. I'm also pulling in location, LinkedIn, and I could pull in some other stuff if I wanted to, but this is what I have set up. I've channel initiated. is RB2B. So it's going to tell me in my CRM where they came from. Email will add on the back end, which I'll explain in a moment. But that's what I can do for Airtable. In HubSpot, I create a new contact and it's very similar. I just add the columns that I want to include and the data that I want populated there. For something like membership notes, what I'm doing is I'm adding the page to the notes if they visit my website to get there. So that'll give me some context clues with the type of services they're looking for. For Apollo, this allows me to potentially add someone to an automatic sequence in Apollo where I can reach out to them and ask if they would like help with a particular service that they were researching. So it won't trigger it automatically, but it will add them as a contact. So if I want to add them to my sequence after I evaluate them, I can go into Apollo and just do that right away. I just recently set this up. And again, I'm in the free version and under sequences, I already added someone earlier. They're active. So let's look at the sequence that I've set up for this to happen. Once I add them, they're going to be coming into Apollo as contacts. And then I have to manually say, yes, I want to add this person to the sequence. It's going to send an email that says, hey, I noticed you were checking out some content on my site, and then ask if they want to set up a free call to talk about what their needs are and if I might be able to help them. Then I have this trigger set up. If I don't get a reply in 30 days later, there's another follow-up email. I want them to be in my own voice, but anytime I add someone to the sequence, I can trigger it and they will receive some emails from me. So that's how the Apollo one works. And then lastly, we have Clay set up. And for Clay, I have the webhook URL. In order to have a webhook, you either need to have a trial with Clay or you need to have a paid version of the account. Now, if you set up a webhook table while you're on the trial, you might still be able to access that later. So I recommend taking advantage of your trial to set up any webhooks you might want to use. And I'm going to pull in from here the LinkedIn URL, company name, and full name. I don't need everything, and I'm going to show you why. Let's look at my Clay table. In this first column, I have the webhook, and it's basically going to pull in the information I have that I just showed you from make.com, and it's going to be the LinkedIn URL, the company name, and the full name of the person. And then I have an enrich person enrichment set up, and it's going to look for their work email. And so once that pulls in, and if I've decided that I want to add this person to my CRM, or if I want to add them to a sequence Apollo, I can copy their email from here and paste it into the CRM or into the Apollo profile. And all the other work's been done. So this isn't fully automated. If you wanted to pay for some of these tools, or you could even use Clay to automatically update Airtable for me once it's gotten this extra info, to update HubSpot, to put information in Apollo. But this is meant to be a more lean version that if you're just starting out and getting your feet wet with these tools that you can try. So I get the email from here. And then what I can do is go back in, again, HubSpot, CRM, Apollo, and add this manually, or even send them a manual email from my Gmail account if I wanted to. So that's the full sequence. Just to recap what we're doing in Make, we create a Slack module that watches my RB2B channel. When information comes in about someone who visited my website, all that information is poured into a raw text string in a Google Sheets cell. That cell then triggers 9 different formulas in Google Sheets to create 9 different cells and values that I can pull from and route to the different programs here. And that allows me to automate lead enrichment and updating different tools that I use to reach out to prospects without me having to do anything. And the best part of this is it's based on people who have visited my website, who have showed some kind of signal that they might be interested in my information, and working together. And from there, I still use a lot of manual discernment to determine, is this worth reaching out to this person? Because I don't want to automate things 100%. I don't want people to get turned off from working with me because they're already getting bombarded with so many AI automated tools and outreach and messaging that they think this is just another message. So I want to be selective about who I reach out to. And when I do, I want to personalize it. But the amount of time I save with this make process makes it worth it. There's so many steps here that now I don't have to do. And so I can focus on evaluating the prospects and automating my outreach to them. Thanks for your time and good luck.